All right. So we're going to talk about group management today. I figured that was a good one to start off. We're going to start to get into the six criteria of effective coaching, and I figured group management. If you don't really have that down, and you're trying to just herd cats all class, the other parts of effective coaching can't really fall into place. So even though I'm going out of order of like the way CrossFit listed out, I think you do have to get this down, and I think it's the easiest one to like day one immediately change something or put into practice. And it doesn't requires work, but I don't think it requires like as much in the fire work as like the others. So I put two different little like article sections. One of them is from the level two. I just wrote out like only read the group management part, otherwise you're reading 90 pages. And then the article, the other one I found was a little excerpt out of the level one that just talked about coaching and like virtuosity. And we think of that always in our movement, but I really liked that they brought up the point that we should be thinking about that in our coaching. And we should be trying to be virtuosos while we're executing class and things like that. So if you got through those and read them, great. This will kind of seem like a little bit of review, but if you didn't, don't worry. Have you guys ever watched someone do literally anything? Like, doesn't matter what the task is, and they are like a virtuoso in it, or it's something they've been doing for
Yep.
20 years, and like it's almost mesmerizing. Like they could be carving a
Yep.
chair, and you're like, whoa, because they're like cutting it up like a butter knife, flying through. Um, we do it all the time when we listen to music, right? A lot of the really famous musicians we listen to, I would say, are kind of virtuosos in that sense, and some even are more than others. You know, when you think of someone like Prince, Deanna knows all about Prince. How many instruments did he play?
All of them?
Yeah, I mean, like not even everyone's like that. So even in the world of
Yeah.
we look at something like music, you have even these outliers that get identified, and then they're like the legends of what it is. So I think when we look at coaching, and I mean, you can take this and obviously replicate it right into just being an athlete and improving. Like we should be doing it in everything we do. And I think that recognition. Have you guys heard Glassman that like it doesn't matter if you run paid marketing, advertisements, all these things. If you are excellent at what you do, you will automatically rise to the top and have that recognition like naturally. That's why it's, I think, partly so important to have the focus that like we need to have with it. So in that first article, if you take nothing away, like think of that. Like, what can I do, even on the most minimal adjustment? If it just becomes a fraction of a percent better, that over time will get us there. Any like comments or statements on that? Cool. Group management. I'm gonna just kind of go down the line here and like feel free to chime in, give your opinions. Bad experiences, good experiences. I'm gonna tell you a bad experience I just had an hour and a half ago with a couple guys in class, and I think it comes all straight down to like me and my approach with them. Um, so chime in on this. Group management. We're gonna look at it from like two perspectives, right? We have the inside the class, like what is happening, what's the flow, how the class is functioning, that, and then we have like the macro, which is going to be like the space in the actual gym. And you can take this as far up the chain as you want to, all the way to like what are the lead protocols in the gym. So like that's not our responsibility necessarily as a coach, but for like a gym owner or you guys that ever get into like head coaching GM roles, it's not just class; it's like the entire ecosystem. For us, we have to look at class. Um, First one's, I think, the obvious is just your time, right? We have a 60-minute window. We have to execute whatever the workout is in that 60-minute window. We got to start on time, we got to finish on time. Pretty plain and simple. In the thought of like the time, what are some other things that you should start to have being planned like within that? So like if you're writing out your lesson plan, tell me what that may look like. That's going to affect group management.
Um, I mean, the timeline, you need logistics. You need to, I think knowing who is in your class and
Let's
having scaling options for
let's go
what.
with let's go with logistics to start. So that
Okay.
like logistics is a great one, right? Every gym that we coach in is going to be different. We're going to have a different number of pull-up bars, rowers, boxes. Like we can go down the line listing equipment. So just knowing your logistics. Like we need to plan for the biggest class we possibly have, right? So if I have that plan down and I know what to do if I get 20 people that are showing up and I only have 10 boxes, then when 6 people show up, I'm good. Like the hardest one is the box check. Within that plan, let's say your gym has 15 boxes, but the class cap is 20. Have an alternate plan with it. So like, if you have an oh shit that happened and too many people show up, or coaching at Riptide, I think was a really good experience for this because it's so small. And sometimes you're like, I have to use the outside area, and then it's thunderstorming and lightning, and you're like, I just lost literally half of my spacing that I needed for the workout, and now I have to pull everybody inside. So even situations like that, having that alternate plan, taking things and turning them into partner workouts and whatever it's going to be, like that is a huge part of group management. I know all of us have been a part of class where the coach doesn't have that out, and then they're like, give me a second. And then you're just kind of like, well, this is my 60-minute window to work out. Now I'm standing here waiting for this person to come up with an idea, to solve this problem. That problem should have been solved at the get-go. And, obviously each gym is different. So each problem that occurs is going to be a different solution based on what your facility is. So logistics, big one. Scaling options, you said that too. Like that is also a big one. That's group management as well. I have those things in my back pocket, so that way when I'm going through my warm up and I'm maybe analyzing people, I may go up to certain people in that and just be like, you're doing this, you're doing this, and then when I run like my little tests and I'm trying to find where people could lie, I have these standards already laid out. So then that way, let's say we're gonna do 65% on the bike for a minute. Everybody that got under 15 calories, you're going to scale the rep range. Everyone that got over, you're good to go for RX. So it's like you already have these things like boom, 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 boom. And it just allows that class to flow without these interruptions of coach, and we have 30 of those a class. It's just all those little things are speed bumps. So when I coach, like I'm trying to avoid anyone asking me anything, even though I say, does anybody have questions? My goal is that no one has a question because I've flowed through and covered every base on that. So like in the logistics, that's going to be one. In the scaling, that's going to be. What else? It's all intertwined.
I
That's your
mean,
clue.
just planning it, like actually planning it out.
Give me a leg of what that plan is going to be.
Well, just even doing like a timeline, and making sure that, like I kind of I go backwards. I see how long the workout is gonna be,
Do
and
that
then
too.
I add 5 minutes for the cool down. And then from there, it's like, okay, so I have to start my workout at,
Next time.
at X time. And then from there, I go, okay, this is what I have to do, the specific warm up or, whatever it is.
You said the magic word, your specific warm up. What are you doing in your specific warm up?
You're warming them up for
What else are
exactly
you
what they're
doing?
going to do. Well, you're logistically as well, you're kind of putting them where they should go. You're
What's your
also scaling them. You're also,
what's your job? You're a coach, right? You're
yeah.
coaching. So your teaching plan, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your progressions, your
Oh,
layering,
yeah.
all of those things. Like we don't, I don't think of that like right off the get go as like this is group management, but it is group management. I know I've taught classes and I'm like, okay, go ahead and warm up to 75%. And you have a couple things that happens. You have someone that just starts ripping the barbell, and now they've done 30 clean and jerks and they've done grace before we've done grace for no reason. And then you have person B that 7 minutes has gone by and their barbell is still sitting empty. and you're like, are you going to warm up today? Like, you got to get going. So you start to have all these cats leaving the herd without the instruction. So in the specific warm up, like you're controlling now when they move, what reps are doing, what they're focusing on, your coaching. But then even in that specific warm up, we need to warm up the barbell. Hey guys, we're going to do 4 reps every 2 minutes for 4 sets. The person that is person B that doesn't like to load their bar and just sit around and talk, they know that they have a limited time frame now, and you're going to move on there, so it makes them kind of get going, and they're also not just going to stand there while everyone lifts. And then the person that also is like maybe the new one that's a little uncomfortable, that kind of doesn't know what to do, so they keep throwing reps just because like that's their safety net and doing something, so they're not just standing there awkwardly. You also save them from accidentally doing 30 reps and they did 10 to 15 and now they're still pressing the limit. So all of that, like even in your teach up plan, your warm up plan of how you're going to load the bar, what jumps you're going to make, all of that is group management. Like you are literally the conductor of everything that happens in that class. That makes sense to you guys? Very rarely do I just let people freely move. Today I made that mistake. Mayhem has a find a max length handstand hold. And there's a couple different variations, like from a wall walk all the way to freestanding or on parallettes. And I put a 6 minute clock on. Based on my demographic, no one was going to hold longer than 6 minutes. My goal was they could do a hold, they could rest a little bit, and then go for like a second attempt, try to beat themselves, or they could do a hold and then take the next 4 or 5 minutes to just maybe do some donkey kicks and start to practice the skill of working toward a freestanding or in a freestanding. And do you know what happened? I put a clock on. I just let them roam free. A couple people did a hold. 2 people sat down and never got back up. And then after the couple people did a hold, one of them attempted a second time, and the other ones just went to their phones and started like texting and waiting for the clock. So that freedom, the reality is we're humans and we're designed to not necessarily work hard, and a lot of people are going to take that easier route. So I think what I should have done was I should have maybe put on a 3 minute clock, had people kick up and do a handstand hold. If somebody did surpass it, the clock's still running, we still know where they are. And then say, okay, you're going to hold at minute 3, you're going to do 10 kickups. At minute 6, you're going to do 10 more kickups. And now they literally have the structure of what to do. And I don't have people on their phone. I don't have people sitting down twiddling their thumbs. So I usually always try to give structure no matter what part of class that we're actually in. What else? All right, so timeline, lesson planning. You guys can see how that reflects into press. Um, I think within that, don't forget that you're the boss and like you're the captain of that ship. So like how many times have you guys been coaching, or like you could just be in class and you see it happening and the coach is like, okay guys, like come on over to the whiteboard, let's talk about the whiteboard brief. And there's like 2 or 3 dudes lingering and they're talking and they're buddies and they don't want to break it. And they're going to talk the entire whiteboard brief. You're going to brief it, and then you're going to start the workout and they're going to start to do it wrong. And you're like, no, 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 no. What are you doing? That's not their fault. Like, yeah, I mean, might have been dumb, right? That's your fault. You should have been like, hey, Justin, come over here, listen to this real quick. You'll give them plenty of time to talk to their friends, and they can hang out a little bit after. But like when you see that happening, don't be afraid of being like, hey, you gonna join us? I always like to make like a little light joke about it, just so they know I'm not like, yelling at them. But I want them to know what's going on. So don't be afraid when you have to put your foot down, and put your foot down lightly. And then very rarely, I think, you have the person that's going to continue to try to push that envelope. That person, that's the person that you may pull to the side and be like, hey, I know you're here for a good time. They're all here to work out and they want to learn. So even though you're here for a good time, I need you to like, just give me a moment, like just something, whatever you have to say. I have a good friend that a couple of y'all know, Bryce. He's like that. You have to put your foot down and be like, dude, come on, or else he'll just keep going. And you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile every time, and he's going to make it worse for everyone because he likes to be the star and he's like the class clown. So control your group. Don't be afraid of it at all. Today, I had three trials. Turned out they were not from here, from New York. So they were milking and trying to sneak free classes when they should have been paying and dropping, right? That's already like strike number one. Don't do that. We don't like that. But they were chatting and you could tell they were bros. One of them lied and said he didn't CrossFit before. I could tell he didn't. And the other one, I could kind of tell that he may have done some CrossFit, but it was very little experience. And I briefed the workout. They paid attention on brief one. Mayhem's workout's a little confusing if you're not used to CrossFit today because it has ascending ladders and then it has changing movements about midway through. And I briefed it again, and everyone paid attention except that they talked. And because they were a trial, I was like, I'm not going to yell at them day one. I'm just going to kind of talk to them after class and like milk them in. And then now they know me day two. I'm not afraid of being like, hey, come here. Right? Kind of just the way I like to conduct my presence at Adage. And workout started. He had no idea how many calories on the bike to do. He asked me every single round for an entire 24 minutes of AMRAP on what to do next. And like, is that his fault? No, he's newer to CrossFit. He doesn't get the flow yet. It's my fault for allowing that to like wiggle off. So put that foot down. What is in-group management? Talk about logistics. Let's bring it back to there. Besides like having enough equipment, what's another really important part of your logistics and running class? And think about like if it was your workout,
Where to place them
where to place everything,
so that
where
everything
to
is like organized so that, and you got to also
huge
tell
one,
them like, don't throw your barbells if the class is big so it doesn't go
yeah.
around. Like,
Where are you putting equipment? It's not just equipment. Where are you putting people? I think a lot of times coaches may do like tell people where to go, but then they don't tell equipment where or put equipment where to go, or vice versa. They'll do equipment, but then they don't tell people. And if one of those is out of sync, all hell starts to break loose. So both of those need to be in play. And then also depending what the workout is, like,
the
do we
transition.
have do we have travel lanes? Do we have these buffers for people to get from their barbell to the rig or to get to a run outside? Like all of these things are going to be big factors into their workout too. We're all athletes. We know how it feels when you come off a barbell and you're working hard, and then you look up and like someone's on your pull-up bar or everyone's doing dubs, and you have no path how to get there, and then you got to walk like all the way around the gym, and now you're like, oh, I just lost 30 seconds, and you're losing intensity, which means you're losing fitness. So the placement, the lanes, all of those things are going to be a big factor. Besides messing up someone's like workout flow, also follows right into what we talked about the other week and like the safety. Is objects where they need to be, if people going to trip, yada yada yada. That's all a part of group management as well. I think when you have floor plans, you're also losing the time of like the workout and the flow of the athlete, but then you're also going to start to lose time of your ability to coach. So like a really good example is today we need a dumbbell, right? So in the start of class, I have everybody go get a dumbbell immediately. So they have a light dumbbell, even though I'm not going to use it at first. They have this dumbbell that when I get there and we do a lunge, like they can just pick it up next to them and grab. Versus if in the middle of my warm up, I'm like, hey guys, go get a dumbbell. Now I just lost the group. Someone's gonna linger back there. Someone's gonna go the opposite direction to the bathroom. Um, so even planning out like what are you gonna use in your warm up, maybe your specific warm up, things like that can save you time on the front end before it starts. Jump ropes are a big one, right? I always, it doesn't matter if I'm using the jump rope for like 5 minutes of class. I'm like, get your jump ropes out now. And I'll stream that out before, try to get as many people, and then I'll get the last couple afterward. And then they're tangled and they're like doing their thing, and you're like, dude, come on, everyone's done with the rope, and now you're starting your set. It's so you can avoid those little moments like that too. And that just gives you more time to teach snake breath, right? And let's say you get your progression done fast, it gives you more time to do practice reps or loading reps. Like that's just all more time for them to get fitter and you to coach. Um, what else do we have? Any thoughts on that or anything before I keep going? Ooh, um, for or your group management, like where most of the time we're always coaching in this class setting, what's another skill of group management that you should be hitting if you have a class of 10 people, for example? At the end of that class, what should each person feel like should have happened?
Oh, everybody got cued at least once or twice or
Everybody got
yeah.
something, right? That's also going to be a big part of group management. And I'll tell you, I'm going to give you guys like something I do that I think helps with that a little bit. Everyone should leave that class and be like, okay, Coach Nate coached me today. Like they should all leave and be like, well, and tell their friends, it's a group class, but you're going to get like one-on-one attention. And it's a hard thing to do because I think especially new trainers tend to go all to like the more unskilled, less veteran CrossFit athlete, and they spend a lot of time there, which you may have to spend a little more time there. That can be normal. However, each person should still take that away. So what I do is I compartmentalize where the group is. So if I'm doing like my specific warm up, I work like outside in. Let's say it's a square and I'm on this side over here. So we're going to do static cue. In my static cues, I start to look at this other side over here. That way these people know I still have eyes on them, even though I'm standing here, right? And we'll do static cues. I'll check maybe this row. If I get into the next row, then awesome, right? But I'm not going to panic because we're going to do multiple reps. So I'll cross over the group. I just do, okay, I'm going to do 3, 4 people. Boom. I watch this guy in this dynamic, and then if you hop the second static, I go back to that other row, right? Depending if I cue or I have to stay, I'll move a little bit. I'll go to the next person to watch their dynamic, and then I'm going to shift the row over. And you see how like it's like one square at a time, this group, and then I'll go this group, and then I'll go this group. And sometimes it's just like, good job, nice setup position. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad cue. But what that good job, nice setup position does is obviously it's positive reinforcement, but it also tells her I'm looking at her. So if she's like me, I'm gonna give you like 2 or 3 good setups, and then the moment I know your back's turned, I get lazy. Versus if someone goes, "Nice job, Nate," now I know, oh shit, the coach is actually looking at me, right? So even those positive reinforcements and the cross doesn't have to always be a bad cue. Tells that person that you're engaged and you're active. Like, how do you get somebody to be more engaged? Coach them. So does that make sense? How you would keep them like on task and moving with the group more often? That being said, if I'm calling reps and it's, let's say I have a class of 15 people and I'm like, okay, we're going to be doing cleans and everyone's going to be in the starting position with a clean. And I know that can be rough. I may do 4 or 5 of the start position and then go, okay, well, my next progression, we're starting again. So I don't have to sit there and do 20 reps of like a deadlift shrug because I need to see her in the start position. I do 4 or 5 reps, I cue whatever it's going to be. I go to the next progression and teaching point. I still have time to cue all those setup positions. And throughout my progression, I get to everybody like in the static and I try to get to everybody in the dynamic. And then we still have a specific warm up that I still have time to there as well. So do you see how you can kind of take that and you don't say, oh, I got to coach 20 people. No, you just got to do one person at a time and like one little section at a time if that's the case. And you just slowly work your way through. You got 60 minutes to coach, right? You have 60 minutes to make an impression and give something. There could be 60 people in class and you can do one person a minute and technically get there on everybody. I think something that would be way excessive. There should not be 60 people in class. But it just goes to show that I think sometimes like you guys ever feel like a panic while you're coaching or like teaching yoga and you're like, oh, there's a lot of people here. I got to get to everyone. And the panic makes you start to almost like skid. And it's like you're skidding and you're not really giving cues and you're just kind of now going through the motion instead of being calm and just like, all I got to do is one at a time. That's something I think I've struggled with. Where I'm like, oh shit, I have 15 people. I got to coach everybody and we have squat snatch today. And I've got a couple that are having a real hard time. I've got some good athletes that just want to rip the barbell. It's piece by piece. Any questions or statements off that? Does that make sense to you guys? Let's see what else I got down here. I think we kind of covered everything I wanted to cover. I would say the main series, the main takeaway from my group management is plan. If you have a plan, you're less likely to fail. If you don't have a plan, let's just say a lack of plan is a plan to fail. So I would definitely say that's your biggest takeaway. I think even if it's not CrossFit coaching, no matter what you're doing for any kind of management, have it laid out and what you want to do and have a plan B kind of ready to go just in case. Hopefully you never need it, but when you do, you think you have it. All right.
I have
I don't have. Go ahead, Justin.
And it's based on today's workout. Because our coach, she made kind of a last minute change to the workout, which I thought was a really good change. So, the workout was 5, 10, 15 calories going on the bike erg. And then like sandbag carry was like 10 feet, 20 feet or something, like small little increments. And she's like, all right, we're going to make a change to that. And we all did 15 calories across the board. I ended up doing the air bike on it. And we did 100 feet sandbag carry. And like the workout was a really good workout, I thought, because she made some of those changes. But then I was thinking of like, what's like the next level of group management that she could have done to make that workout even better for me? It's like knowing your athletes well enough where on, like, for example, the air bike, she could have gone up and be like, all right, I want you to maintain cadence of X based on or range of a cadence based on knowing like some of the long term athletes there. And I was like, man, if
Oh,
she
absolutely.
would have came in and done that, like I would have, because I was kind of guessing a little bit on 15 cals for myself, what it would be like. But like to me, that's like the virtuosity of group management and coaching is like not only can you manage the group, you can manage individuals to get them to push themselves beyond what they would do on their own.
So like even better would be, which you're super spot on. I think giving each individual athlete like something they're gonna do that makes you want to go back to that person's class because now it is like even though we're all doing the same thing, it is like a one-on-one session and it is tailored to what Justin needs, what Deanna needs, yada yada yada. Is that's where like a test round even gets better. Like you do a test round and you say, okay, and you obviously need rest before you start the workout, but we're gonna do a 15 cal bike. Okay. And you're gonna watch the clock, you're gonna get off, you're gonna push it like a 75% effort, perceived effort, and you're gonna check the time when you get off. Right. And then you get this time frame. So let's say everyone does the bike and you have some people that get off in 40 seconds and they smoke it, and you have people that are like approaching 90-second range. Then you're like, okay, all of you guys that went over a minute, I want you guys to do a 10-calorie bike or a 9-calorie bike, and your goal is to be off the bike every time before 1 minute hits. You guys that just did 15, you're going to maintain 15, but same rule. You're not getting off past a minute mark. So now you have these like little incremental benchmarks or like soft time caps that you have that like maintain pace and maintain. So like those little testers can be phenomenal for what you just said and like kind of like giving a cadence goal of what it is to do. Sometimes I think for me, like if someone says, "Oh, you should maintain an X amount of RPM," like I know where I feel on different lengths of bikes, but I think most members don't. And then I think it's very hard for me to be like, "Oh, Deanna, you should maintain a 60 RPM," but I don't really know what that feels like for her. So if I base it off of time and like when I want her off, it's a better guess mark for me as a coach because I'm a 230-pound male. I weigh 100 pounds more than her. The bike is gonna feel different for how I think it feels like and how she thinks it feels like. So that way, if I actually do an individual test in like a time frame, that minute frame is gonna make her ass work. But then I'm not telling her, oh, you should maintain 60 RPM because it may not be something she could actually do. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a great way to like make it even just that much better. What's something else? Thinking of that workout that Justin said, someone's wrecked for Murph.
Um,
Lighter sandbag.
just move,
Just
yeah.
move. Yeah, don't worry about pushing anywhere. What if someone didn't do Murph yesterday? I had a girl this morning that did not do Murph because she was working like a PT table during it.
And
It's cow bike and sandbag, and then we did the dumbbell lunge. Justin. We didn't do sled, not sleds. So how can I make that worse?
I mean, can she RX that workout?
Yeah, so she could RX the workout. The RX load, just for reference, was super light. It was a 35-pound dumbbell for guys, 20 for girls. So I can bump her up.
Right.
Right. I can give her a heavier dumbbell to make it tougher. Having the like metric of like the minute I was talking about, or like the cadence that Justin was talking about, like giving her that goal so she gets more of an intense workout than everyone else flowing. I had her do bear hug sandbag and lunges instead of going to a single dumbbell. And she was like, I'm fresh. Like, I feel good. I was like, do you want to make it hard today? She was like, hell yeah. So she carried a 50 and she lunged with a 50. And that made it, you can tell like it was doable, but like she was full wedding walking. She was standing up, she was taking a breath, she was lunging again. So don't be afraid to not only like scaling the goal, but bump people up when bumping people up is appropriate. What's another way to bump them up without like increasing load or increasing reps?
Having them like do it quicker. Tell them you got this amount of time that you got to do it, so you got to fly through it.
Yep. Yep. Give them like an alternate, I'm gonna say time cap in air quotes because like don't cap them, but give them like this alternate cap that they need to operate in their brain on.
Like a goal.
Yeah, I had a guy at my first level 4, and we went through our little test, and he did his front squats. It was very very clear that 135 for him was like us doing an air squat. Like he was just up and down, no problem. I knew some background information on my evaluator, and I know he wasn't a fan of increasing load, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think when the time's right, like increase load. I know she's a fan of move faster, so that's what I did with him. I briefed the class, and I wanted the class to land between 4 and 6 minutes. I told him to try to land at sub 4, and I was like, operate like you've got a 4-minute time cap, and he did. He ended up doing the workout like he believed it did in the 302. Couldn't function after. It looked like he did Fran, but like that was the appropriate thing for him to do there. So yeah, giving like time frame goals can be a big one. What
Yeah,
else?
Mayhem, I think, usually gives like a target time. And like I'm always asking the coaches, I'm like, what's the target time for this workout? Because that does make it helpful.
That should be that. Mayhem makes it easy for a coach because we have them just laid out and they're there. But giving the stimulus is probably, if I had to put together like what are some of the most important pieces that I need to be doing daily as a coach, that's the stimulus of why we're doing that workout is one of them. So if like I don't give that time frame, what am I losing? Intensity, right? And if I'm losing intensity, I'm literally taking away from a chunk of what the definition of doing CrossFit is. So those time frame goals, even if someone can RX the workout, they're going to get technically a better workout as far as power output goes, scaling and hitting that window. So that's keep asking that question. That's a very important question to ask.
Does Mayhem also give the RPE percentage of the weight? Because I sometimes the coaches are like, yeah, it's 65%, even if it's, if the RX weight is like crazy. I'm like, I have no clue what I am. They're like 65%. I'm like, awesome. Like, and then I know what to play with.
Like, if it was like a Metcon, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think so. They just list out like RX and then they list out their, I think they call it independence and freedom, which is like RX intermediates. I would probably put that out that way. They don't usually put like a percentage of RPE. Occasionally they do, just weightlifting. But what they will do is like in the brief or like the breakdown of the workout, they'll write out like athletes should be able to maintain 5 reps a set. Or like there's like some kind of goal in the set of what it is that you should be able to hang on for like touch and go reps and stuff like that. So that's how you can word that question a little differently. You're like, okay, how many? If it's a set of 20 cleans, what are we looking at as far as breaking up this 20? How should that feel? If it's 75 pounds for guys, they're going to be like, you should be doing 20 cleans. But if it's 135, they might be like, you should be doing no more than 3 sets or, something of that nature. So you know what the load is. And then from there, you can kind of gauge, what you should be doing. Mayhem's tricky. And like, I don't know what gym came in and know you guys follow or if you write your own programming. But like when you have a strength and a metcon or like a skill and a metcon, it can get a little tricky on having the time to like give athletes instruction or a test on how to choose loads well. Sometimes like you go through the skill and you have 5 minutes to transition to a metcon, so you really like don't have that time frame. So that makes it a little trickier versus .com. You have a workout, you have a strength, you usually have a metcon, and that's where you should be implementing or having time to actually test and play with things there. So Mayhem is tricky. I would say keep asking those questions to coach, like how many sets should I get through this, stuff like that. Don't always just rely on a percentage. I think sometimes too, like percentages are an estimated guess, right? And that's like the conversation between are percentages better or RPEs better. Percentages could be, you could have a 30-pound PR and you don't know it yet. So 65% is really not operating 65% anymore. 65% is now operating 40% versus RPE. You're like, oh, the 65%, it feels very light today or very heavy today. So percentage is like a good guesstimate, but it's not necessarily always really accurate either. And it also comes down to like, what is your strength to stamina like ratios? If you tell me 65% of my overhead squat for a workout, dude, that's me doing like 215 for 10, 15 reps. That's not happening. So it's not always a good gauge either, depending on the person. Like technically I should be able to do that, but if I had to do 215 for 15 reps, it's gonna take me 5 minutes. Like there's no way. So ask like what the breakups are. That's a good question. Anything else you guys have?
I have a question. Now that you're at a new gym with different programming that you weren't used to, do you give your whiteboard brief before, or do you do it like at the beginning of the class, or do you do it before each segment of what you guys are doing?
Kind of do both, to be honest. I still like giving it before, and I'm going to tell you part of the reason I like to give it before is because when I go step into a level 4, I don't want to go from not to suddenly doing that. So I'm kind of just establishing my own personal template of what I want to do, because like every day should be kind of the same template. The workouts and the planning is just changing, but we should technically, like for me, it's whiteboard brief, general warm up, specific warm up, and like loading, and then like workout, and it kind of just like doubles because it's strength and metcon. So I like to still whiteboard brief before, because I also cut out questions that they have, even though we're not there yet. So a good example today, today's workout's super, super simple. But as I'm going through, I'm like, hey, if you guys are really sore, go no dumbbell, or I gave the option to do a body weight box step up. Because I know like there was one guy in class, I know he has some weird knees, and I figured the step up would be more comfortable, and the data proved to be better. So I gave like some scaling options and adjustments up and down today before we started. And then when we started actually getting to the workout, people already had what they wanted to do chosen. So like pull-up days are a great example. Sometimes I'm like, hey, today's a fast moving pull-up, guys. We can't fumble with a band, so we're doing jumping pull-ups as a modification. I briefed that before, so then that way in class I don't have people going, hey, how am I going to scale the pull-up, or they're setting something up I don't want them to set up. So I still do brief them, and then depending on what we've got going on, I do like just a touch-up flow brief, which I don't give all the information, but I'm like, okay, guys, just to recap, 12-minute AMRAP. You have a 10 cal bike, and I just kind of refresh their memory on what we're about to do. So they have 2 chances to actually know how to flow the workout.
So, but speaking of the L4, then would you do the same in the L4 because it's almost like impossible. Like there's always gonna be at least 2 or 3 athletes that are gonna be like, what is it we're doing? Like,
Yeah, there's people that look you in the eyes as you're doing it, and they still don't know what they're doing because they're thinking about something else. It happens, and it's human nature. So yeah, I personally do like to retouch and like touch on it. I also do something where I go, okay, guys, 10 seconds. And when I say 10 seconds, I actually say the workout. Or I'll say, we're starting with a 10 cal bike in 3,
yeah.
2. You know what I mean? So like if you were for some reason still lost for a second, I give you one more shot to know where we are. I do the same thing with rests. I'm like 1 minute, and then we got that 3 minute rest. Like I don't wait till the time period to yell it out. Like they always have like the next step coming as I'm yelling to class. But yeah, I if I was running level 4 again, I would still probably retouch on the workout. It's also different because it's one piece. The heavy day,
Yeah.
or it's a metcon. For something like the heavy days, they want to hear, how you're going to execute them, but not just you saying, okay, we have 5, 6, 3, and we're trying to maximize these 2 back squats. They want to hear you say, we're going to do five sets of 3. We're going to do 5 warm-up sets. In the warm-up sets, you should be in, 30%, 45%, 50%, 65% range, and your starting load should be around 75%. And then from there, you should jump, 20 pounds per set, and you should go from 75% to 80 to 85. But they literally want you to lay out a roadmap for everyone on how to warm up, how to add load, how to incrementally add load when they're in the workout, how much rest to take. Like they want to hear all of that. If you miss any of that, you miss some of the teaching instruction and you fail teaching, even if you're taught a beautiful back squat. Like I'm not teaching you how to add load to your bar safely and effectively. Does that make sense? So it's like the devil's in the detail for all of those little things. And like Justin was saying, like those little, if he had a cadence on the bike, cadence RPM, Eco changed the name. If you have those little goals, it just moves that needle that much better on information that you're providing as a coach and like moving you step by step toward trying to be that virtuoso.
Okay.
Like if you think of, I think Justin's a great mind for this because like he has some of the best questions, right? And he's always thinking about like, how should this feel? How should I move? How should this, if I was the athlete and I had all of these questions lined up and listed out, as you're coaching, you should be checking the box on each of those questions and they never have to actually do this. That's a good way to think about it. Like, what do you want? And then start to check those boxes off. Like, what
I guess I just never thought of including like in that case, like if it's a heavy day, the specific warm up in the whiteboard brief. Like usually I give you the whiteboard brief, and then right when we get to that specific warm up, then I tell them we're gonna do this.
That's fine. Yeah, I just meant like in my whiteboard brief, I'm probably gonna let them know that we're gonna do some like warm up sets in this, and I'm just gonna tell them I'm gonna give you instruction about where they should be percentage wise as we go. Like I'm not gonna say every percent in my whiteboard because no one's gonna remember that. But what I am gonna do is let them know that we're not just doing literally 5 sets of 3, that we're really gonna do like 10 sets of 3 today. And the first 5 sets are to get to where those, the actual workout's going to begin. It's like if every class you taught was a class of people that have never heard of CrossFit and they have no idea, like you want to provide the information like that. And then yes, you're gonna have people that don't need it. Like I don't need you to tell me how to jump my barbell when I'm back squatting. But then you're going to have the people that do want to know exactly where to be, even though they've been there all for 10 years. You still have that member that has done 1,000 thrusters in their life, and they walk in and go, "What's a thruster?" It's going to happen. So you always have to kind of approach it in that sense.
Yeah.
When you guys were in school, did you ever do the? I don't know what they called it. But did you ever do like the what do you call that? Like homework assignment when you had to write and teach someone how to either tie their shoe or do a peanut butter jelly sandwich? Did you guys ever do that? No. So I had a teacher I don't really know what the point was. I mean, it's very applicable to what I do for a living now, but I don't know about English people. And one of our homework assignments, I think I was in maybe like fifth grade or sixth grade, and I was fairly young, was to you had to either write how to tell someone how to tie their shoe, or you could tell someone how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? And what she did in class was she let a couple people volunteer, and then she was like, "You have to do exactly what the paper says." And what ended up happening was like the person would write, um, you know, untwist the bread package. So then she's like, nope, you're not allowed to untwist the bread package. You don't know how to
That's
do
not
that.
in the instructions.
So get to the bread. And the person had to like rip the bread open because they don't know how to get to the bread. And then like the person I remember forgot to say, get a butter knife. So she's like, all it said was like spread the meat. So she's like, use your hand. And the kid had to stick his hand in and spread it with his hand. And the point of it was like the devil's in the details of how to like do something. And like we should really be operating as much as possible with those details, and providing that information. Like that it's not just how do you do a snatch, how do you warm up for a snatch properly, increase load, bail a barbell, all of those things. Drop a bar, like you said it. You know, sometimes you're like, hey guys, don't drop the bar from the top because you have 10s or 15s on and they bounce sideways and then they go into someone else's lane or they break and your gym owner's upset because you can tell them to not drop 10s. Just stuff like that. So like all of that, people don't know what they don't know. And we assume that they do know, but they don't know. So we can never have the assumption that they know. 21-15-9, perfect example. We've heard that a million times. We know what that rep scheme is. Someone walking into CrossFit has no idea. I briefed the workout the other day. It's very similar. It's 40-20-10. And I literally, I did my part. It wasn't my fault. I was doing 40 dumbbell snatch, and then you're supposed to do 40 toes to bar. 20 dumbbell snatch, 20 toes to bar. And the guy, still confused, brand new at CrossFit, he thought he was going to do 40 dumbbell snatch, take a rest, 20 dumbbell snatch, take a rest, 10, and then go to toes to bar and do 40, rest, 20. That's how he thought it was structured, just because the way it was written, it's not what it's supposed to. So, like, take nothing for granted, ever. And the people who act like they know what they're talking about, a lot of times don't have a fucking clue. So keep that like in mind in your back pocket as well. That they may have been in CrossFit a long time, but they have not watched the Mike Bergner video you did, or they have not read the article or had the discussion that you have, and they don't have the like heavy why behind it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
How many times have you guys heard an athlete say, "Oh, smack the barbell with your hip, use your hip," and they use it like a kettlebell swing? You're like, yeah, you're right, but you're wrong as hell at the same time. So, you know, that's a good example of seeing that happen. Put down people coaching in your class. You got a member that's like trying to coach. Like there's a couple people I've had in my life that I trust and I let them, but I actually know they know what they're talking about. And then I've had people who think they know what they're talking about, and I've actually heard the very wrong advice be given and make it worse. So be like mindful of that too. That's a tactful conversation. I think they just want approval and they want, you know, they feel good about themselves. So don't be like, hey, like have a side convo for that one. Anything else? Group management, class related, anything related? I would say that's kind of the least exciting one to talk about. We kind of already covered presence and attitude last week when we talked about like personal training and gaining trust. You know, gaining the trust to gain clients. I would say that presence and attitude is the same exact thing. Be present for conversations, you know, care, that kind of stuff. The only thing I would say that we maybe didn't touch on, but we talked about it before as far as presence and attitude goes, is like balancing cues with praise. We've definitely talked about it. That'd be maybe the only thing we didn't say last week. When you are coaching people, like when they earn it, let them know they earned it. Give them the good job, give them the praise, however you want to do it. What I will say for that is don't just give praise. Don't just be like nice or good. Like don't use it as a filler word. Only say it when it really actually is. It will have more value and weight. Does that make sense? Have you ever had someone that just tells you good job always, and then you're kind of like, yeah, you said that yesterday. Like I'm really bad about that, and I'm guilty of that. And I've realized like you shouldn't tell people good job that often, only when they like earn it. So when you see them working their ass off, trying to push their knees down a squat, even if that's not perfect, but you know the work is there and they're struggling, like that's a good moment to do it. So we're not going to spend next week on presence and attitude. You kind of have two checked off right now. We have group management with presence and attitude done. Do you guys have any statements or questions on that? I think that one's fairly straightforward. Be a good person, care. So we'll move on to now like teaching, seeing, correctly. We'll start to move into that. That's where we can get a lot more detail oriented, and they kind of all go together. I'm going to try to compartmentalize them. Next week we'll do teaching, and then we'll go seeing and correcting. Like you can't really do those separate. I mean, you can, but you can't. So we'll go teaching, and it'll bleed us right into seeing and correcting.
Okay.
Anything you guys want to add before we call it a day?
No, thanks, Nate.
You guys are welcome. I'll see y'all on Thursday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.